Thank you for joining us at XM.com. This is a Forex Preview video. The Swiss National Bank meets on Thursday, but this meeting has been overshadowed by the Credit Suisse banking turmoil. I'm Christina Marujos. With me today is our lead investment analyst, Rafi Boyajian. Rafi, we just got the news that over the weekend, UBS has agreed to acquire Credit Suisse in hopes that it will calm the market nerves. But how could this development affect the policy decision by the Swiss National Bank this week?
Well, indeed, Christina, a lot of headlines to digest days before the SNB's decision. So it looks like the only way to save Credit Suisse is to force it to merge with its bigger rival UBS. And it doesn't appear that this has completely resolved all the worries in the markets. We're seeing markets remaining under pressure, the Swiss franc remaining under pressure. So obviously there's a lot of focus as to what the SNB will do on Thursday because a rate hike was a sure bet prior to this crisis. And even though now markets continue to price in a 25 basis point rate hike, that of course is a downgrade from a 50 basis point rate hike before all this contagion fears escalated. It is likely that we will get a 25 basis point rate hike because inflation has started to tick higher again in Switzerland. It had appeared that inflation had peaked, but the last couple of months we're seeing inflation pressures resurface. Although it does compare to other nations, Switzerland, the inflation in Switzerland remains comparatively low, but it's still a concern for the SNB. And of course, you have to factor in the fact that the SNB meets just 4 times a year, so they've got less chance to respond to the changes in the inflation outlook. So probably they will go ahead with the 25 basis point rate hike. But the question now is how are they going to try to provide some other reassurances in terms of financial stability? Yes, they did provide a lifeline to Credit Suisse. That wasn't enough to soothe market jitters, and they're also providing 100 billion liquidity for UBS. To basically, they needed to do that to encourage UBS to take over this risk by acquiring Credit Suisse. So are they going to try to come up with other measures as well, or are they just going to focus on inflation when it comes to the monetary policy decision on Thursday?
Well, it remains to be seen. It's going to be a very interesting meeting, but let's turn to the market reaction. And taking all of this into account that you've already mentioned, how could the franc perform on the SNB meeting this week?
Well, the Swiss franc has suffered some losses over the past week, even though it is supposed to be a safe haven. But now that, of course, this banking crisis has hit home, the Swissie is feeling the effects of, it's losing safe haven appeal, and it does suggest that investors are worried about the domestic banking sector. Now, of course, given that markets are nevertheless pricing in more rate hikes beyond the March meeting, so we have about 1.5 additional rate hikes priced in. So even if the SNB were to reinforce its hawkish bias, its tightening bias, so that it's unlikely that they're going to be even more hawkish than what money markets have currently priced in. So at best, we could see the Swissie recouping its losses perhaps, but beyond that, it's going to be difficult for the franc to make additional gains. On the other hand, if the SNB were to follow in the footsteps of the ECB, they hike rates now, but then they fail to commit to additional rate hikes, that could further hit the Swissie. On the other hand, that could perhaps boost confidence if it appears that the central bank is going on pause, so they're not risking further damage to the economy by hiking rates. So it's really hard to be sure which way the Swissie will react. But one thing is certain, its safe haven status isn't really doing much to support it at this current moment in time.
Rafi, thanks so much. This was a Forex Preview here at XM.com.